Welcome back to another edition of the Talking National League podcast. And on today's edition, we are specifically looking into Oldham Athletic, who currently sit in the relegation zone for the first time this season, and of course in their history in the Vanarama National League. So I'm pleased to be joined by Bradders from the Boundary Park Alert System to talk about this. A lot's gone wrong, hasn't it, over the past couple of seasons at Oldham? I think that's a bit of an understatement. 21st in the league. You have the worst attack in the league. You have the worst away record in the league. You scored one goal in your past 4 games. You've lost 4 games on the bounce. What's been the biggest problem for you so far this season?
Probably the parking facilities at the. I'm only joking. No, it's everything from top to bottom, really. It's been a catastrophe from start to finish. The only glimmer of hope is that we've now got good ownership since the Lemsegans have gone. We've got a head of recruitment. We've got a really good owner who's invested in the club, but the infrastructure off the field has been invested in heavily. We're making progress day by day, and the appointment of David Unsworth has been a good one in terms of the longevity factor and the holistic approach the board has wanted to take, giving him a 3-year deal. However, it just doesn't seem to be happening for him on the pitch because he's inherited a squad, should we say, a poor squad who were pulled together in a transitional phase of the ownership changing hands. So they were quite limited to what they could get, signing players who were passed over the hill, some who were injury prone, some who are just not up to the standard of the National League because it is a tough league, and we're suffering for that. However, David Unsworth's only had 12 games. Apologies. He's won 1. He won another one on penalties against Chester in the FA Cup. It's not going to change overnight, and I interview David after every game, and he's always honest. He's very passionate. He's working day and night to get this done, and he's got to be given the time. That being said, if we're still in the position where we are now in February, there's going to be some serious questions that are going to be asked by the Oldham fans because none of them want him to go, barring the few idiots. But he needs the time to gel his squad. He needs a proper transfer window with the Football League window so he can sign players. These players who are in a bit of disarray, whether they want to go to a league club or they want to wait for January, because we're in for Joe Nuttall at Scunthorpe. We're actually going to buy him for reportedly $100,000, and that's been unheard of for Oldham Athletic. I think the last player we signed for money was Danny Rowe over 3 years ago from Fylde. So it's stepping stones, and he's just got to be given the time. But the National League's quite an unforgiving league to give you that time, isn't it? As you well know.
Yeah, it certainly is. And I think when Oldham first came down to the division, there were still the ownership issues happening. But as soon as that takeover happened, I think the most dangerous thing I think Oldham was a little, insecure a little bit about was getting back into the Football League. They never thought in a million years that you'd find yourself, a club of your stature, in the relegation zone in the Vanarama National League. The first time in your history that you're in this division. Now, this must be the lowest point of Oldham's history for you being a fan, mustn't it?
Yeah. Getting beat by Altrincham away was probably, I thought, was a low point. I thought we'd come back against Halifax. We didn't play too badly against Halifax, but we didn't have that cutting edge. But the luck's just not going for us. As soon as you scored, and we scored, I thought we were going to win the game, but then lo and behold, our defence switched off and you went on to win the game. And we went to Wrexham the following week. We got battered 3-0. It is a low point, but again, it's. I'm quite chilled about it in some ways because I know it will get better, and I know that the foundations are being built ever so slowly but surely, and I think David Unsworth will get it right, but it's just really difficult. And I was one of the biggest John Sheridan fans there was because he was my favourite player of all time. But I knew John Sheridan had to go at the start of the season because he wasn't getting the tune out of the players. And it is the players that David Unsworth has inherited. He's inherited bad players, soft players, weak players, mentally weak players. And they're getting people like John Ebbrell now in the backroom staff, Francis Jeffers in the backroom staff. You know, these are senior pro coaches. And Mick Rathbone is coming as a psychologist to try and move this forward and help with the physiotherapy. Steve Thompson's just been recently brought in as the head of recruitment. This has been unheard of. The last 4 years, we've had some crazed lunatic, Mo Lemsegum, trying to sign French National League 2 players and trying to sell them off for a profit. And they're unheard of dregs of the French National League. You know what I mean? So we've got to, as fans, really look at what we've come from to where we are now. All right, the results aren't happening on the pitch, but everyone goes through the bad spells. And it'll only take 2 or 3 results to get a run in this league. And I think that's what we'll get. But he's just got to be given the patience and the time. And I don't think in some respects that the fans are helping, because they're always jumping on the players' back. So when they're mentally weak and negative and low on confidence, fans jumping on the back. So if any Oldham fans are listening to this, we've just got to give the players time and put our arms around them and just give them the support that they need, because we will get there and we'll be back bigger, better than ever.
Yeah, I think it's a bit of devil's advocate, isn't it, when you think of Oldham? I think everyone thinks Oldham, they've got that massive fan base behind them. You know, surely they shouldn't be in this current position with that fan base behind them, spur the players on in those key moments in games. But you can also look at it from a different angle. You've got 6,000 fans getting on your back. It's not going to help you, especially with the so-called younger players in the squad too, for Oldham Athletic. But just some statistics that I'd like to just point out here. Sheridan had 9 games in charge in the National League this season. He won 3 of his 9 games. David Unsworth has won only 1 game in his first 9 games in the National League. Does it feel like for you, you're going on a downward spiral compared to where you were at the start of the season now? And you think potentially looking back, maybe it wasn't the right decision to let Sheridan go, and was Unsworth the right man to come in the job at that current time?
That's a really difficult question. I think Sheridan, you have to look at towards the end of last season where we went on a 7-game losing streak that pretty much ended our hopes of staying in the EFL. I personally think he should have gone in the summer. However, I think he wanted to stay with the club because he wasn't sure about the ownership situation to try and get us out of the league. Yeah. Now, I'm going to spin your question. And if Sheridan was still there now with the previous owners, I think we would be at bottom of the National League North. David Unsworth has inherited a very bad squad. We've got Jack Stobbs, who we signed from Grantham Town. He should, in my opinion, still be at that level, Northern Premier League. We've signed Dan Gardner, who is very inconsistent with his injuries and his suspensions. We've signed Chris Port, who's 38, who's allegedly got a blood clot in his leg and he's out for the season. Mike Fondop, we retained his services. He's been banging the goals in. Luke Burgess is a bit lightweight for me for the National League. However, Unsworth has brought in the likes of John Rooney. He's not set the world alight and he's been relatively poor. He's a luxury player, in my opinion. But then again, he signed Jamie Carragher's son. I've forgotten his name, his first name, but Carragher's son. And he played really well. And he unfortunately had to go back on loan. Mitchell Roberts has gone back. Peter Clark has now come in. We've got some leaders. Lewis Maynard started to play in the defensive midfielder role. Nathan Sheeran was one of Sheridan's signings. He's done really well. He's been playing centre defence, right back, centre midfield, which is his position, but he's had to play everywhere. So it just... Are we going backwards? No, because I think we would have gone backwards with Sheridan with this squad where we were. But hindsight's a wonderful thing. We never know that. So I think David Unsworth needs to bring his own players in, get his own strategies in place to put this team into a 4-3-3, which is his preferred position. His preferred formation. Yeah. He's got in 10 games' time. I think we'll know whether he can cut the mustard. But I think I personally think we would have gone down this trajectory with Sheridan because we're on that road anyway. This league has been really tough, and the previous mistakes of past ownership have come to ruin peak now at this point of the season, and this is where we are because of the low confidence and the culture that the Lemsagams have instilled into Oldham Athletic. And trying to break a culture, like any organisation, won't happen overnight. It takes time. It takes a lot of nurturing of the players, and the board and the owners are like Darren Royal are doing the right things properly and doing them slowly but surely. They're not spending $5,000 a week on a player who should be playing in League One like Wrexham have. They're not spending $4,000 a week on people like Ben Tozer. They're good for instantaneous success. But I personally don't think that Wrexham will go up this season. I think Notts County will go up, and next season will be rather telling for Wrexham. So I'd rather take the slowly but surely route. Stay in the league, which is first and foremost, and maybe push for a mid-table finish. If not, trying to sneak into the playoffs and get some momentum there. But it's a very long season, and we've played 12 games. We've got 2 in hand on a couple of others, so we're not done for yet. But if you speak to me in February and I've gone grey and looking rather weary and dejected, you'll sort of know where we are. So
we've seen this before, haven't we, with a lot of clubs, how crucial a January transfer period can be. And I think that's something that Oldham could potentially be dying out for. Yes, we only are in November, but it's crucial that you start bringing in players because, like I've said, it's really hard to put your finger on who is to blame at the moment at Oldham. You can't blame the chairman, where previously, you've always had that where you can blame the chairman. You can't blame him because of what he's done so far for the club. You can't particularly blame the manager because of what were happening beforehand with Sheridan. I think the only thing that you can really blame is this quality of players in the squad that's embedded into this Oldham squad. I don't know if you'd say that they are actually underperforming as players, or if they just don't have the ability for this level anymore.
It goes back to the saying, it's skill or will, and I think they have the will to succeed, these players, although they're very low in confidence. But I genuinely don't think some of them have the skill to succeed. As I say, I don't want to throw anything under the bus because every Oldham fan knows, but we've got some players in there who are just not good enough, and it needs to be sorted out. I think Sheridan tried to go for experience and went too far with that by signing the likes of Porter and Gardner. One's injury prone and one's 38. As I say, I don't think it's the right way, but I think David Unser's made a few signings like Siddy Peck, who played on Saturday on his debut, who's on loan from Sheffield United, looked really good. But again, he's a really young lad, and they need confidence and they need to be around the quality characters. But again, with Peter Clark coming in now and Liam Hogan coming back from a 10-week ankle injury, it's only going to get better. But again, it's just building that momentum slowly but surely. And Oldham fans don't want to be in the National League. They think they've got a God-given right to be in the AFL club. But if you look at the last 15 to 20 years of Oldham Athletic, we've been on a downward curve for a long time. And then it's been exacerbated by the ownership of Abdallah Lemsagam, who crippled our club financially, instilled a poisonous culture, got rid of all the good people there, and now it's like any business, isn't it? You can buy a business from like you can go another bookshop can buy another bookshop and change it overnight because they have the same dynamic. But a football club is special and it's full of all these different emotions and characters and needs and all these people who want different things, and then you've got 6,000 fans who want another set of different things. So trying to keep everybody happy is nigh on impossible. And I feel sorry for the board because sometimes they'll do something. We'll ask them to sign a player, and then we'll sign a player, and it's like, oh, we signed Mark Kitchen, and it's like, well, Mark Kitchen's just won the league with Stockport County. Yeah, but he's had a cruciate ligament injury. So they're either wrong or very wrong. I for one, don't know how they keep the patience with some fans, because no matter what they do, it just seems to be critique always thrown at them all the time. And again, I just want the fans to be patient and just have that, just belief that we will get back there. And if we all work as one, I think we'll be okay. But again, it's down to David just to get the results on the pitch. I'm no mug to say, we can all be as one off the field and all be great. But if he's not getting the results, he's not getting the results. But he needs that time and he needs a transfer window to sort it out.
Yep. I put a Twitter poll out earlier today prior to this interview, and I said, are Oldham going down to the National League North? And of course, that's something that Oldham, it's their worst nightmare, isn't it? I think going down into non-league was the worst nightmare. But to be going into, northern, southern football, it's even more of a nightmare, to be honest. But I put a poll out, and obviously it's based generally on National League. So a few Oldham fans may have voted, some Wrexham fans, any fans could have voted towards this poll. We had over 100 votes in the couple of hours that it's been up. 52% said Oldham are going to go down. 48% said Oldham are going to go up. What's your opinion then?
I think I'm known to be an eternal optimist, but this season's really tested my patience. I think we'll stay up. I believe we'll stay up. I think we'll be mid-table finish, if I'm honest with you. So we're just going through a bit of a rocky patch and we'll be fine. But only time will tell.
Yeah, I know. But I think there's always this little bit of arrogance. It's something that I said on the podcast on Thursday when we were talking about Oldham in a little more detail, a little more in general. We were asking the question about that relegation place, not just Oldham, but all the clubs down there. And I said, compared to the other clubs, there's a lot of big non-league clubs down there. Torquay being one, they're a big club at this level. But I looked at Oldham, I thought, they cannot afford to go any lower down the football pyramid. They've got too big of a fan base for one to be going down. And this is something that maybe a bit of arrogance comes from Oldham fans themselves and maybe myself, that you say, oh, Oldham are too big of a club to go down, because I never feel that any club's too big to go down. But it does feel like you look at Oldham, you look at even the players that they've still got, Lewis Maynard, Liam Hogan, it is too good for the National League North. And I think that's something that I think from Oldham's fans' perspective, hopefully that 6,000 plus crowd or whatever you're getting now, which is still very good, can push you on in the future. And with a few more additions, which you are making week in, week out, with Timmy Abrahams coming in, John Rooney came in early. Yes, hasn't set the world alight yet, but we know what he can do at this level because he's proven it before with Barrow and Stockport. Does feel like Oldham can get out of this sticky situation, try climb up the table at this moment. But yeah, I'm just thinking when I've been watching Oldham recently, I watched them at Halifax. I watched the game against Wrexham. Obviously, I can't watch every single game Oldham play, but I look at Timmy Abrahams and I look at him coming into the side, and I thought it's a perfect addition because it always felt like Oldham lacked flair. They lacked that flair player who could, drive them forward, get the crowd off the seats at Boundary Park, and he seems to be that player. But what concerned me was, especially against Wrexham, he was quite isolated, and they would find it hard to get him on the ball. At Halifax, when Timmy Abrahams got on the ball, he was making things happen. You saw that back heel. That's a special player that can do that to set up the goal. But then at Wrexham he goes, and he's just isolated in that game. How does David Unsworth get him involved a lot more? Because surely he's that player that can drive you forward if there is going to be any bright spark in the team at this moment in time.
Well, I'll go back to your first point, talking about saying that no club's too big to go down. Stockport, for one, were down in the National League North for nearly 10 years, and Stockport were a big club. They were probably more successful than us in the early 2000s. They were the Championship club, but a lot of bad ownership decisions and a lot of bad decisions off the field made them go down because of Brendan Elwood and all that sort of fiasco, and Peter Kennedy and stuff like that. It was a nightmare. So I don't think any Oldham fans under the illusion that we're too big to go down, other than a select few who think we should still be in the Premier League. As you go on to Timmy Abraham, I think he's a great player, but you're very right. We're playing like a 5-3-2 against Wrexham, but it was like Hallam Holt was just behind Abraham, and he was isolated. Yeah, many Oldham fans always said to me, "What formation should we play, Bradders?" And it is 4-4-2. Keep it simple. 2 up front, fond up to flick it onto Abraham, and it's a recipe for success because that's what they need: a pacey lad and a big lump up front who can just knock it down and pass it on. And you look at the likes of Luton when they went up. You look at Stockport last season. They did play a 5-3-2 predominantly, but they had a big lad up front and they had a pacey lad up front. That is all you need, and and it's all about width with Stockport how they went up last season. If you can get two great crosses of the ball, you should be okay. And I think we've got one in Kitchen. I think if we just get that next right-sided midfielder, because we're playing Ben Tollett there at the moment and Hallam Hope, and they're not that sort of player.
Yeah.
So I think width and getting a quality crosser of the ball is going to be the solution. But again, it's getting the right player, because David Unsworth has admittedly said, now we've got these new owners, players that just want to come for the money, and he doesn't want players who are financially motivated. It's all right for the likes of Wrexham, who will just pay whatever you want. Notts County to some degree, they've been spending quite big, getting the likes of that lad from Gateshead. Yeah, but he's going to get moved. He's probably going to go for a big move in January. So David Unsworth's doing it the right way, but doing things the right way and having time coming against you, you've got to find that balance and find it quickly, because it is going to be it's going to be worrying times if we get to January and we're in the doldrums of relegation.
I think the positive you can take is the fact that you've got games in hand. You are in the relegation zone, but you've got 2 games in hand on side above you and, of course, below you as well. Maidstone coming up then on Saturday. That's going to be a huge game. I think it's quite weird, I think, from an Oldham's perspective to say Maidstone away is a huge game. No disrespect to them, but I don't think you'd be wanting that at the start of the season. You haven't won away from home yet this season. Sorry to remind you. I know I keep reminding you that. You're struggling to score goals, but how crucial is it that you get not just a point, but all 3 points at Maidstone away on Saturday?
It's vital. I think if we can get the 3 points against Maidstone away and getting a result and getting a clean sheet as well, because our only clean sheet away was the opening day of the season against Torquay. I think it's absolutely fundamental that we get that. And if we do, it could really kickstart our season, because following that, we've got Boreham Wood away, then Solihull away, and then Torquay at home, and then we've got Gateshead at home. So if we can try and get 9 to 12 points out of them games, we should be okay and be on a positive sort of spin for Christmas, with the double header at Notts County on the Boxing Day and New Year's Day, respectively. So, yeah, Maidstone is absolutely crucial that we get 3 points. Boreham Wood, they're a good side, and away they're quite formidable at home. But again, I think all they need is just to click and get that away win, and the lads will be raring to go.
You need a boost, and I know you had that at the start of the season with that boom. But for example, Dorking at home, prior to that, it was all built up for you to win, and because of that, was probably why it drove you through the game. Now if you had Dorking at home, and you hadn't obviously played them, you'd probably be looking at it now and you'd be thinking Dorking are going to win. But because of that game, or because of the boost that you had, you look at the games coming up now. If you could get something at Maidstone away, it'd give you such a boost going into games like Solihull and Boreham Wood and games like that, and it'd drive you forward up the league. Because yes, of course, Oldham, what your real aim is to get out of this division. You want playoffs, you want to potentially go on to win the title, but that's not possible this season. It's unrealistic. From now, it's to survive, stabilise, and then the following season go on and potentially bring in, a quality load of players that you don't have at your disposal, to be totally honest, at this moment in time. But you've still got the quality there to survive this season and have a high mid-table finish. Is that something that you would agree with? Is about stabilising this season?
Yeah, consolidation. It's staying in the league, consolidating, get rid of all the crap players. And just bring in Unsworth signings if Unsworth is still there at the end of the season, and give him that time for the pre-season, because I think another thing that he said is that the players are just not fit, and that's another problem. And our training facilities over the summer with the dry spell, because of the previous owner, he took all the maintenance budget out of the club. So the players didn't have anywhere to train for 3 weeks of the pre-season. So they're 3 weeks behind already. So, and a lot of people were only made aware of that following an interview that we did with the CEO, Darren Royal. So 3 weeks in pre-season is crucial to a club and the players to get them fit. And I think that is one of the issues that we've got. We're just not fit enough and not strong enough for the National League. But I'm sure that David Hunns will get it right. And no one more than me wants that to happen, because he's an honest guy. He's a good guy. He's a good coach. If you look at his credentials, he's probably one of the best coaches in the league. He's a UEFA Pro licensed coach. He coaches the coaches for the SFA, Scottish FA, or he did do before he joined Oldham. So he's not behind the wall. He just needs to. I think he just needs to adapt his method of coaching to the National League as well, which is, I know it's easier said than done when you've learnt a different way, but actually understand that players may not be able to play the technical, pretty football that he wants. And I think he just needs to keep it simple. But who am I to question David Unsworth? I'm not a qualified coach in any way, shape or form. But if I can see that a 4-4-2 works, like we played against Yeovil and we won 2-0, and then we played it against Scunthorpe when we were 2-1 down and we nearly won 3-2. It's sort of, I watch Oldham every week, so I know when they're playing well and I know when they're playing badly. And just keep it simple. That's all I'd say. And I do like to question him on his shape and tactics, much to his dismay sometimes. But it's we're fans, and that's what we're here to do. But he has my support, and I think he has got the support of all the fans. But again, in 10 games' time, I keep on going back to it. If he's still in the same position and we're still in the same position, I think there'll be a few eyebrows starting to raise and a few questions being asked.
Cheers for coming on.